Who did they read? Oh, wow. Who did they read? I'm asking a question. Anybody? People? Who did it read? Nobody did it read? Nobody did it read? Who did the reflection? Y'all read it up there. So you guys remember? Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me?
Yes.
Are we gathering our thoughts? Welcome, new people. It's been a while. It's very important that you guys are doing your reading. Like I said, this is kind of commentary on Matthew. So if we're not reading it, doing the commentary alone is not really going to help, right? So unless you're reading it and really thinking about it before you come into the class, if this is the kind of the first time you're hearing about the class, then it's going to be very, very confusing. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? All right, so we're going to read it. Read the chapter again, like not the chapter, but the verses. Again, this is how many, like 12 verses that you guys need today. 12 verses. Nothing, right? Very small amount. So please, if nothing else, just read like those verses that are assigned, before you come in, and think about it throughout the week. This is really going to help you like appreciate the class a lot more instead of this being the first day that you guys are hearing about it. Does that make sense? Everybody settle down? All right, so let's go ahead and start. I need a volunteer. Okay, he's on. Let's read this one. Start from Matthew chapter 9. Remember what we said about reading the Bible? You guys remember? 5:12?
5:12.
5:12?
5:12.
So now that's the Old Testament, and then the New Testament is 4:1. 14. 1. Yeah, you guys are right. So in the New Testament, the first 4 stands for what?
Gospels.
First 4 are the 4 Gospels. What are the 4 Gospels? Very good. Which chapter are we looking at right now? We're on what chapter?
9.
Chapter is which number? Big one, small one? Big one, right? Now we're looking at verse 14. The verses are the big numbers, small numbers. You go to Matthew in your Bible, which is the first book of the New Testament. You go to the big number that says 9. You go all the way down until the small number, you see 14. And from 14 through 17, you're going to read this version, right? Real loud, with power, right? Right.
One day the disciples of John the Baptist came to Jesus and asked him, "Why don't your disciples fast like we do and the Pharisees do?" Jesus replied, "Do wedding guests mourn while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them and then they will fast. Besides, who would patch old clothing with a new cloth? For the new patch will shrink and rip away from the old cloth, leaving an even bigger tear than before. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the old skins would burst from the pressure, spilling the wine and ruining the skin. New wine is stored in new wineskins so that both are preserved."
Very good. Thank you. All right. Can somebody summarize this for me? What is it saying? Somebody summarize real fast. Come on. This is right. Oh yeah, that's one right. Come on. Yeah, summarize.
Basically, he's talking about how you gotta put 2 things that are kind of the same together, or one will ruin another. So we're talking about how you don't put new wine in old container because it will destroy it, and talk about how you don't put old wine in new container because it will ruin the container. So you gotta put the new in the new, so both are preserved.
Very good. The first thing that we got to understand is the disciples of John the Baptist come and then they go to Jesus and they're like, "Wait a second, there's something fishy going on. why are they being the disciples of Jesus? Why are they not fasting like the Pharisees and like us? Like we're fasting. Why are they not fasting? You know what Jesus does? He gives them a whole bunch of analogies. We'll get into the analogies. But that's kind of like the summary of like the verses that we read. The main point here is the disciples of John the Baptist are coming to Jesus to ask them why the disciples of Jesus are not fasting. Does that make sense? And then Christ responds back in analogies. We get into the analogies. Remember, everything has meaning behind it. First of all, when we're reading this, we have to first understand who John the Baptist is to really appreciate what's happening, because this is kind of a big deal. Who's John the Baptist? John the Baptist is kind of like the guy at that time. At that time, like he's the man. He's like everybody looking at him. What does that mean? It means that he was the man because he was the last prophet. Prophet means we're talking about Christ as if he's coming. In the future tense, right? Christ is coming. Get ready. He's coming. And then a disciple is somebody who says, he came. He's teaching. Because he was like this. He's like, talking about the past. It makes sense? Disciple is somebody who's telling you what happened. Prophet is somebody who's telling you what's about to happen. Okay, like, not exactly, but it kind of wrap your minds around that. So John the Baptist is a very unique character because he comes at a time where he's right before Jesus, but because he's also like at the same time with him, he gets to talk about him while he's there. So he's also a disciple. He's following Christ. Makes sense, right? He's a very special character. And because of his teachings, and because he has so much acceptance, people have a lot of respect for him. So he's a very respected man, prophet. Call him whatever, disciple, whatever. And this is the reason why, like, you guys know every single day is a holiday in the European calendar, right? Right? There's like 30 days. You guys know this? Okay, so within a month, there's 30 days. We don't have to say, is this 29, 30, 32? There's 30 days flat. And then we have the 13th, like, makeup day of like 5 days. I don't know what to call it. 6 every 4 years. Please don't correct me. So what happens is, every single day, there's a saint that we remember. Right? There's like specific saints. You know what I mean? Like 21 is the Virgin Mary. And then 24 is, I gotta say that. And 30 is guess who? John the Baptist. Fitting. Why? Because like the month is ending and a new one is about to begin. Because he ended the prophets and began the disciples. Makes sense, right? Stuff is making sense. So now here he is, and this respected prophet actually talked about Jesus. In the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 26, he said, John told them, I baptize with water. So John the Baptist, he was baptizing people before Christ came. And he said, I baptize with water. But right here in the crowd is someone you do not recognize. He's talking about Christ Jesus. He says, though his ministry follows mine, I'm not even worthy to be his slave and untie the straps of his sandal. So this person that everybody's respecting, he says, you want to respect me? No. There's somebody a lot greater than me. His name is Jesus. I'm not even worthy to untie his shoes. Like, you see how much respect he's given him? So even John the Baptist, who they're respecting, is giving Christ respect. You need to understand this kind of background in order to understand what's happening in Matthew. This is why commentaries are necessary. Because we kind of just read it. John the Baptist disciples came and what's No. So these are the disciples of John the Baptist who himself said Christ is bigger than me. Now his disciples, John the Baptist's disciples, are going to Christ not to learn, but to challenge him. They're not going there to learn, teach us or anything no. They're going there trying to challenge him. This is a big deal. It's huge. Why is it big? This is a testimony of what happens within our services. John the Baptist is a very good person. So his disciples should be walking in his footsteps and not challenging Christ, right? Same thing with Christ's mission is going very strong. They should be kind of helping one another out. But now there's this thing that's happening in between, especially on the side of John the Baptist's disciples. It's a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of understanding. but it's also what happens in service. When your service begins to grow, what do you think the first thing the devil is going to try to do is? What's the first thing he's going to do? Separate. Right? Separate. Divide. Like, you think he's like this, but really it's like that. And then you start to think all these negative things in your head, because that's the goal, is the devil doesn't want us to grow. Like, to mess up the flow of the service that's happening. So clearly, Christ's service is growing, and he's upset the devil. You guys understand it? You guys see that? And we see and we understand that because, again, John the Baptist himself said, Christ is breathing. So John the Baptist's disciples are not in a position to question Christ and why he's doing what he's doing. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Make sense? Okay, let's keep going. So they asked him about fasting because, and one of the books in the Bible, Dedicate, right? Is that in the New Testament or Old Testament? Huh? Dedicate, the book of Dedicate. Is it new or old? Why is it definitely not new? So it's the old. Is he a prophet? She's checking her phone. She's like, nope, that's not here. Book of Dedicate. Well, it's in the Bible. This is the sound. He answered. So that's the key, right? How many books do we have?
81.
We have 81, right? It's a part of the New Testament. Remember, we have 36. We have 36 books in the New Testament. We have 36 books in the New Testament. One of the additions that we have when we molded the Bible is called the Dedicate. And it's the apostles telling us what we're supposed to do. In it, it says the following. And let your fastings be with the, and let not your fastings be with the hypocrites. For they fast on the second and the fifth day of the week. This is what the Pharisees and all this were doing before Christ came. Does that make sense? They used to fast on these days. But do you keep your fast? But do ye keep your fast on the fourth and on the preparation or the sixth day of the king? 8 verses 1 through 2. So what this is saying is, basically in the New Testament Bible, the Pharisees, they fasted on these days. We fast on different days. Which days do we fast now? It says on the fourth day. Which is the fourth day? Let's count. What's the first day? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, fourth day. Right? Wednesday is the fourth day. So he's saying fast on Wednesday. And then we fast on Friday, which is the preparation day. Why is it preparation day? Because Saturday was the Sabbath for them, so they would prepare on Friday. Does that make sense? Little side note here. This is why they crucified Christ on Friday. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they crucified him. One of the reasons is because that's when everybody went to the market. So they wanted to make an example of Christ when everybody was outside and people could see him. Right? It was a preparation day. Because they knew Saturday everybody would be inside the house and nobody would be. But they wanted to make an example. We crucified him. This is why we can't deny the actual crucifixion. The fact that he died is because the entire city witnessed it. It was a day of preparation. So we fast on Wednesday. Why do we fast on Wednesday? Why do you fast on Wednesday? Any idea? Why did they change the date? Why? Huh? That's when they decided, like the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin, that's when they conspired against him. We're going to crucify him. Right? Friday is the day of crucifixion. So we fast because we're thinking about these things. The reason why I'm telling you all this is not because I had nothing to do and I was just thinking about what can I fill up the time with. This was the problem with the Pharisees. The problem with the Pharisees is they're fasting 2 days a week, we're fasting 2 days a week, right? The difference is they have no reason. They have no idea why they're fasting. They're like, today is Monday, let's stop fasting. Today is Thursday, let's stop fasting. They have no idea why they're fasting. They have no purpose in their fast. And they're just doing a ritual. So now these same people who are doing a ritual are going to Christ and saying, why are your disciples not following the same ritual that we're following? And notice, again, every single time you guys read the Bible, understand what Christ is saying and understand what Christ is not saying. Understand what Christ is saying, and then understand what Christ is not saying. So what does Christ say? Notice his response. Jesus replied, do wedding guests mourn while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. So the first thing that you have to understand is he gives them an analogy. When the groom is there, people are there to celebrate with him, not to mourn. Right? But when the groom is gone, there will be a day. Where everybody's fasting. What he's saying is, or what he's not saying is that fasting is still important. He never said this. Remember last week we were also talking about this. Notice he doesn't say oh no, fasting is not necessary, that's not the main important thing. That's not what he's saying here. What he's saying is, there'll be a day when we're fast. Not now. Now they're celebrating with the groom. They're with the groom, they're celebrating. But there will be a day when they will fast. What does that mean? Let's look at it. Analogy of groom. Well, he talks about wedding guests, right? Who do you think the wedding guests represent? His disciples, or in general, it talks about us, but specifically he's talking about his disciples. So when he's talking about mourning, they don't mourn, he's talking about they don't fast, right? It's an analogy, simple. When he's talking about celebrating, he's talking about spending time with Christ. So he's saying they are with me right now. They're with me right now. There'll be a day when they're not with me and they need to fast. But right now they're with me, right? So being taken away, when he says there'll be a day when the groom is taken away from them, he's talking about himself being taken away from them through death. And he's talking about being taken away from them through ascension. When he ascended, what happened? He left them, right? When he left, who came? Who came? The Holy Spirit, right? So now they're able, and we're going to look at that in a second. They were ready. They were capable to start fasting. Right? But before that, they were still weak. They weren't ready. But more importantly, they're with Christ right now. What is the purpose of fasting? It's to get closer to God. Believe it or not, how many fasts do we have in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church? We have 7. You know what the problem is? People approach every fast the same way. Each fast has a purpose. Each fast, there's a goal. What's the next fast coming up? Right? It's about the Virgin Mary being revealed to us. And her coming towards us with her son. That's the mindset that I need to be when I'm fasting at. Not another 2 weeks of rearranging my meal and stuff. That's not the purpose. If you're fasting like that, of course, what's the point of fasting? Remember, it's a tool. Christians never understood why they were fasting. It was ritual. It was check. That's what it was. But we are Christians, so we have to understand what we do. It's like a toolman, right? Let's say he needs to hammer a nail into a wall. So he picks up a screwdriver. What does he pick up? A hammer, right? He knows what he's doing. A hammer is for a nail, and a screwdriver is for a screw. He knows what he's doing. So when he picks it up, he's picking it up with a mission of hammering the nail to the wall. Makes sense, right? A little kid, a 3-year-old kid, he can pick up a hammer or a smaller size or whatever and play around with it. But he doesn't know why he's picking it up. He doesn't appreciate it. If we're fasting with that mentality, we're just picking it up because we were told to pick it up, we don't understand. You're missing the point. You're like the Pharisees. We don't get it. You see what I'm saying? But if we're fasting, what's the fast that just passed, for example? Fast of the disciples, the apostles, right? Remember, this is the fast that they actually fasted. Christ just said they don't need to fast right now. But when the groom is separated, through what? Through death and ascension, there will be a day when they need to fast. Why do we fast of the apostles? To get ready for mission, and to think like them, and to be in their spirit, and to really get into it, right? And then after what's the next fast? Fast of? The prophets, right? What's the purpose of the fast of the prophets? It's to say Christ is coming. Because for us, his life is always new. We don't get tired. You know, you hear that. If if you just heard you want $1 million, like every time you hear it, I want $1 million. Like I want $1 million. Like I want $1 million. You know, like you'd be so ecstatic and you keep repeating it. Well, God came to this world. God came to this world. God came to this world. We tell it every year as if it's new. So when we were fasting, we were really fasting with that mindset. Like it's new to us every single year. See, this is kind of the mindset that we need to be in when we pick up these tools that will help us get closer to Christ. This is the point that the Pharisees forgot. This is the point that the Pharisees did not understand. Another way to think about it is like, and you're filling in the blank as, those that are young in spirit may fast like the Pharisees without understanding the benefit of fasting. Without understanding the benefit of fasting. Those who are mature in faith fast with the ultimate goal of being connected with Christ. What's the problem? Okay. Which one? Which one do you guys want? The first one, without understanding the benefit of the fasting. I think everybody knows. I know the language. The second is with the ultimate goal of being connected with Christ. Of being connected with Christ. So another way to think about it, another example is of what these people are saying. Are you guys with me? It's like imagine, like Christ came up with you. Like, wow, you know. And then he's like, hey, I want to take you this Sunday. I want to take you somewhere this Sunday. Like, come with me. And then you tell him, Christ, you know, I would love to. The only thing is I gotta go to church this Sunday. Like, I can't make it. You know, like, it's. You see what I'm saying? That's what they're telling you. Like, the whole point of fasting is to be with Christ. What are they doing? They're with Christ. So to go up to them, no, but like you didn't follow the ritual. Like, no. You're missing the point. The point is not the ritual. The ritual is supposed to be a mechanism to get you closer to Christ. If we're missing the goal, then no reason to do the ritual. Like, for example, one of the rules that I put is when we go into the church, we take off our shoes. If we're just taking off our shoes, we miss the point. That is not the point. The point of taking off our shoes is to take off our shoes of our heart. Like all the mind, all the things that we picked up, all the dirt, your shoes picks up dirt, right? All the dirt we picked up in the world, we should leave it at the door. This is not the time, like, if I'm in a fight with somebody and I'm not liking them, whatever, I have to leave it at the door. You see, I don't bring that, like, nonsense in my heart into the church. But if it's like, no, I can't go into the church with my shoes on, whatever, you're missing the point. And that's the problem, is every single time we approach the church, if we don't approach it with the goal of getting closer to Christ, then that ritual, you're not understanding. You're like the Pharisees. There's no difference. No difference. Let's keep going. The analogy of clothes. So give some another analogy. Just in case they don't get it. Like, give some first one, maybe they didn't get this one. I'm going to give them a different analogy. Now, first of all, you need to understand why he does analogies. Christ loves analogies if you read the Bible. You know why? Because he's talking about a world that we haven't seen. He's talking about, like, the kingdom of God, like the paradise, right? So he has to create words for us to understand. This is why. But even these words are not good enough for God. This is why, like, you have to be careful, you know, and how we talk about certain things, because there's no word really good enough to talk about the world that we don't understand. So in order to help people understand, he uses a lot of analogies. Now, the following analogy, most of us may not get it. Why? Because we grew up here. We grew back home. It makes sense. Like the clothes example, right? When one of your shirts rips, what do? Go buy a new one, right? Like the duh, you know what I mean? It makes sense. In fact, they started selling jeans with wholesale, right there. Like they prepare it that way and they sell it to you. You know what I mean? You don't try to hide it or anything, you own it, right? You go to that, different story. You know, what happens is, they have like, you know, my friends, they used to come up to me and they're like, we were very close, so we used to make fun of each other. And we'd be like, no, I'm very rich. I have like 3 parents. You know what I mean? And they're very serious. And then when they come, it's like it's all like ripped and stuff. But when it rips, they don't throw it out. It's like you don't throw out clothes. Like that's very rude. What you do is sew them back out. And when you see them, like their shirts look like a rainbow. Because like, you know what I mean? Like if something is ripped here, they put like a blue patch on it. It's the whole. It's not like it doesn't even match. You know what I mean? And then a green one here, and so on and so. Like the main thing, it's close or more. You know what I mean? Like we're the ones like it's not matching. You know what I mean? And all this stuff, and we're just so worried about everything. So today wasn't a good day to talk about fashion. So for us, it might be hard to understand the following example, but when you talk about the analogy of the clothes, right? When your old clothes has a hole in it, you do not get a new patch and put it on. Like you know this. Why? Because the new one will shrink over time and get the hole like back again. Like it will mess it up again. And then it won't fix it. It will shrink again and again. And then the hole will rip again and you have to do it again. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody will do that. What you want to do is, for the old clothes, you want to put old clothes on. Right? Makes sense. So that's the analogy. He's saying like, who would do that? Who would take like an old clothes and then when you have a hole in it, take new clothes, rip that one up, and then put it on the old clothes? Who would do that? That's what he's saying. What does he mean by that? Well, let's look at it. The old clothes represents the disciples, or those who are new to the faith. And I'll explain what that means. New clothes means fasting. Patching the old clothes up means asking the disciples to fast. Old clothes being ripped means the disciples or someone new to the faith being pushed over his or her limit. So, you have the old clothes, and then you put new clothes in it. Because it doesn't match up very good, the hole's still going to be ripped. Like, it doesn't match up very well. It's not good for it. Right? That's what he's saying. What this really means is, there's a time and a place for everything. You have to be ready, you have to be prepared. Somebody who's new to the faith comes in, and you ask them, you tell them, we have 7 fasts, fast right now. What do you think is going to happen? They don't understand the purpose. They don't understand the goal. They're just doing the ritual. If you're just doing the ritual, you're going to leave, you're not going to last. I promise you right now. If you're doing anything, whether they do the Orthodox or anything without understanding it, you're going to get tired of it very soon. You might do it for a year, maybe 2, but you quit after that. Because it's not meant for that. That's not why it's there for. It's there for so you understand. I'm not here to tell you don't fast. Like, don't be like, we learn not to fast. Like, no. Understand. Learn. You should have made this time. We're grown. Number 1. Number 2, don't compare yourself to anybody. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care how many years you've been in the church. Don't compare yourself to anybody except for yourself. You see what I'm saying? Your goal is to grow spiritually. If you're not growing, like danger, like red line, huge problem. Then be scared if you're not growing. Like, look at your life last year, and then look at yourself today. If you haven't grown, that's danger. You have something to worry about. But if you're growing, don't be worried about like so-and-so fast 3 days without eating. I'm gonna do the same thing. Like, no, that's not the goal is not that. The goal is to grow, right? And you're growing, but you've got to grow in the pace that's good for you, that helps you out. You know what I mean? Just because somebody can go to Sadat and Mahalit or whatever and stay in church 24/7 or whatever, it doesn't mean you have to do that today. That's the thing. A lot of people, a lot of young folks, after hearing a sermon or whatever, they're like encouraged. You know, like, for example, reading your Bible, right? Like, I'm going to read the entire Bible in a week, you know, and then they get so into it. And they read like a whole bunch the first day, the second day, they're not going to read anything. Why? Because they didn't pace themselves. This is the problem we have, right? People are very emotional, especially at this age, where emotions are all over the place. So it's very easy to get lost. That's what he's saying. He's saying, Christ is telling them, look, man, there's a time for everything. When Christ left, who did the disciples get? The Holy Spirit. See, the Holy Spirit was there to toughen them up, to get them ready for service. Once the Holy Spirit was with them, they were ready to fast. They did that fasting with the apostles. They still fasted. Once the groom left, they started fasting. because they're ready at that point. You see what I'm saying? We have to be ready. If you're not there to compare, don't just because people tell you stuff, whatever, like don't feel like you have to be pressured to do something that you're not ready. That's why we need somebody to guide us and to help us get there, who is our spiritual father. That's the point of a spiritual father, is to guide you and say, here's the road, my child. This is the way you're supposed to go. Get a little bit there. Do this, do that. And he's there to work with you. He's not there to, make you like miserable or anything like that. So the old clothes also symbolizes the mindset of the Pharisees. The old mindset, or in our case, it symbolizes the old life that we were living, right? The old life that we were in, like before you got in a relationship with Christ. Fasting is not going to benefit you if you're not changing your life. If you're not willing to make a change in your life and you want to keep like your old life the way it was, and you want to do the rituals, no point in it. That is not the goal of fasting. That is not the goal of Christianity. That is not the goal of anything. The goal, again, is to get close to Christ, right? The way you get close to Christ is change your old habits, change the mindset, make it new. You see what I'm saying? Like the old code, like old lifestyle, get rid of it. It's not gonna help you anymore. Once you do that, then you can put on Christ. Then you can have Christ in you, and then it will benefit you. Then you can do the rituals, and it will benefit you. But if you want to maintain the old lifestyle and follow a bunch of rituals without you really understanding it, you're never going to understand the beauty of Christianity. Never going to understand it. Okay, analogy of wineskins. Analogy of wineskins. Same concept. Same stuff. The wineskins are the things that hold the wine, right? Old wineskins, they've been stretched to the limit. That means they've held like many wines over the years, and then they're beginning to stretch out. If you put in new wine, what happens is it kind of, starts to, gain some volume. It's gonna burst the bottle, right? It makes sense. That's what's gonna happen. Why? Because it's not ready. It's the same concept as the new clothes. Old wineskins symbolize the disciples, or those who are not ready for this type of like change or fasting, whatever. New wine again symbolizes fasting. New wine and old wineskins is like asking new members or the disciples to fast before Christ ascends. The old skin bursting from pressure is the disciples or someone into the faith being pushed over to the limit. You guys need to understand there is something called being pushed to the limit. We talk about it like I Christian about us all the time. You guys ever heard of that? Half of the people that didn't have the people about a new Christian is more like ritual than a bishop. He's very like serious, like a new, because like Christ is very powerful. You see what I'm saying? Like when you accept Christ, He changes your life. So what you see is, if you don't deal with it the right way and you're just being emotional, you spend a good month or 2 months, or let's say even a year, like day and night. No, I don't go to church. I'm not saying all this stuff is bad, but you get to the point where you'll be worn out and say, I never want to see it again. You see what I'm saying? You get to the point of being like worn out. Christ is not there to warn you out. We have a life to live. It's okay to live your life. Like God wants you to enjoy the life that you have. He just doesn't want you to commit sin. That's the thing. Like we're not like locked in church just to spend time in there. No, that's why even when God created the world, He created things so we could eat it. He created things so we could look at it, enjoy it, and really like get entertained by it. And like we're supposed to enjoy the life that we have in this world. We're not just meant to be sad and cry and mopey and stuff like that. That's not the goal of Christianity. That is not the goal. So that's the thing. So people who come in, they feel like they got the you get worn out. You have to know your limit. And you push yourself, yes. You do the things that you're supposed to do, yes. But don't be worn out. Again, you need to fast. I felt like 1 or 2 people are going to walk away like, I don't need to fast after all. That's not what I'm saying. Again, if you're not ready to accept the old wineskins, we cannot carry the new wine, which is, does it say tea teachings at first? I was going to get tea at the time. the teachings of Christ or the mystery of the church. Even when we're talking about like things like the gospel, right? And what we're talking about right now, this is something that the Holy Spirit reveals to you. And you have to be ready. Like your heart has to be new, ready to accept the teaching of Christ in order for the mystery to get revealed to you. Or it's just gonna burst. It's gonna be born. It's gonna be like pointless. Just sitting here, hour, day after day. That's why people get very, very tired. Like, I need to change. Why? Because they haven't changed their heart yet. Their heart is still old and they're trying to put something new in it. No, your heart has to change first. Your heart has to change first. Make it new and then put in the new Christ, the new teaching. And then you'll stay. Does that make sense? Okay, let's keep going. Any questions? Any questions? We're doing pretty good time. No questions. Yes.
So,
What's the questions are on
if I was celebrating, be like spending time with Christ on the analogy of the group, can you like mourn and celebrate at the same time? Like, you could fast and still be with Christ, or being with Christ means in a different sense.
Very good. So you guys understand his question? His question is, why is it put in a way to say that mourning means you're away with Christ? Like, remember the analogy that he gave, right? Like, they can't mourn. They're celebrating the groom. When you're with the groom, you're celebrating. It's not a time of mourning. Is what the analogy that Christ gave. So if mourning is fasting, is it possible to be mourning with Christ? Right? That's the question that he's asking. What do you guys think? I like it. Until I get ready for an answer. What do you guys think? Is it possible? Why is it not possible? So you can't mourn and be with Christ at the same time?
How would you mourn if you were with Christ?
Well, fasting means what? Mourning in this case, right?
Yeah, so like, if the purpose of me fasting is so with closer to Christ, if I'm like truly like with them, or how am I mourning? Even if you're fasting, I don't see it as mourning because you're with him. So like if you're saying like the definition of fasting is like strictly mourning and you're with him and you're fasting, I guess technically you're mourning, but like I wouldn't consider that.
So it goes back to understanding the analogy, and I think that's where you're at. The analogy in this case is saying, celebrating, we mean by, remember, this is the commentary. By celebrating, we mean that we will be with Christ in paradise. In paradise, there is no fasting. You see? So celebrating doesn't mean being happy in this world. You can fast this, right? And you can fast and be really, really happy. That's the point of fasting. Right? You can see the story of Daniel when he was put in the den and he was fasting and all this stuff. Like he became stronger, right? And he was happier than the other guys who were in fast. So yes, it is possible to celebrate. But in this case, what we mean celebrate, we mean living in paradise with Christ. And in paradise, there's no fasting. Mourning in this world means fasting. That's why it's put in this way. Does that answer your question? Other questions? Other questions? Very good. I need another volunteer. Oh, I don't know. You come here. No, not you. I don't like you here. Like right now. The one next to me. He's like, if I took away the people want to see me.
As Jesus was saying this, the leader of the synagogue came and knelt before him. My daughter has just died, he said. But can you bring her back to life again? If you just come and lay your hand on her. So Jesus and his disciples got up and went with him. Just then, a woman who was suffering for 12 years with constant bleeding came up behind him. She touched the fringe of his robe, for she thought, if I can just touch his robe, I'll be healed. Jesus turned around, and when he saw her, he said, Daughter, be encouraged. Your faith has made you well, and the woman was sealed at the moment.
Very good. Small number.
When Jesus arrived at the official stone, he saw the noisy crowd and heard the funeral music. Get out, he told them. The girl isn't dead, she's only asleep. But the crowd only laughed at her. After the crowd was put outside, however, Jesus went in and took the girl by the hand. She stood up. The report of this miracle swept through the entire countryside.
Thank you. Summarize. You that one.
The one was saying this, basically somebody came up to Jesus telling him to resurrect his daughter, and on his way to do it, another female touched his robe, believing that she would get healed, and he turned around because you believe, like your belief or your faith saved you. And then after that, he went to the person who was dead, and then there were people around her who were like, she's not dead, she's just asleep. And they laughed. And then he resurrected her. And then they didn't laugh anymore.
Very good. Very good summary. So, somebody, we'll get to who this somebody is, goes up to Christ and says, my daughter is dead, dying. What does it say? It says dead, but it's actually dying because she's not dead yet. We'll talk about what that is. So, he says, please come to my house. And then, so Christ goes. He goes, are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? So he goes, he follows Christ, and as he's going, some lady who's been bleeding for 12 years, the Bible refers to it as the issue of the blood. For 12 years, she's been bleeding, very sick lady. She touches the fringe of his robe, and suddenly she's healed for 12 years. He tells her, your faith has made you well. Now, after he leaves that, he goes into the room and everybody's crying. It's like the culture of Israel and Ethiopians are very similar. Very, very similar. So imagine like an Ethiopian election. Like they're shouting and yelling and stuff like that. As that's happening, he's like, no, she's not dead. And everybody like laughs at him. Like, she surely doesn't know the difference. So he goes in and sure enough, she gets up. And then, he heals her. So that's the summary of what happened. Now I want you guys to pause and think about if you were reading this at home and how you would read it, right? Just think about it. There's a lot of stuff that we're missing. This is why commentary is needed, and I just want to pause and say that. Because if you guys were reading it at home, maybe you get something about the faith of the lady, I need to have faith, and you move on. There's a lot of deep stuff inside of it. This is why it's important to take time, read it at home, come back, read it here, go home, think about it, and meditate on the teachings. First of all, this first thing you know is this story is actually repeated in Mark and Luke. So this story is repeated in Matthew. It doesn't mention the name, but the man's name is Jairus. Jairus is not an ordinary man. He's a leader. Of whom? The synagogue. What's the synagogue? Where? The Jews. This is where Jesus was tried. This is where all the people hate him. He's the leader of that place. Jairus, this character. So all his friends are the people who are following Jesus and making sure that he gets crucified, and they hate him, and they're just angry at him, and wherever he goes, they're just following him and angry. He's their leader. What does he do? He goes and he bows down. He goes and he's like, my daughter is dying. Now she's not really dead, but he's saying she's dead because he's trying to show the urge for Christ to come with him. He's trying to really show how bad he needs Christ right now. You need to come right. It's very important. She's dead. Basically, when somebody's in the hospital, last second, whatever. She's dead. So he's telling them you need to come right now. Come right now. At the same time, he's a leader. So it's very easy for him to send somebody. You know what I mean? Like a king, right? If there's somebody he needs something, he'll send one of his helpers. He doesn't go himself. Right? He's a leader. But he goes himself. Why? Because he's desperate. The two things that we need to see. Number one, he shows his humility. When he goes to Christ, because he's so desperate, he shows his humility, and his humility is showing his heart. He's ready. He's like, you know what? Like my friends and stuff like this, like yeah, they're gonna judge me, and he's probably like really scrutinized for what he did. Like this is low for him. It's not ordinary for somebody in the synagogue to go to Christ and bow down to him. That does not happen. Does not happen. But he did it. Why? Because he's desperate, and because he has a clean heart. He's ready to accept Christ. Here's the thing. Christ will try to wake us up in different ways. Right? We talk about this. Like when somebody, like my brother, I always talk about this. Like he could not get up when we were kids. Like horrible. So it took more than one trial to get him up. First one would be like, yo, Beanie, like wake up. Like nothing. You know what I mean? And then he doesn't listen, what do? Kind of shake him up a little bit. Still nothing, right? So now you gotta really get his attention. Sometimes Christ is trying to get your attention, and you throw something in your life like, hey, get in, like wake up. Like, what are you doing? Right? You don't listen, he's like, okay, alright, like wake up. You shake him up a little bit. It might be scary, but listen to it. Understand what's happening. Don't ignore it. Right? That is his way of telling you, like, you need to get it together. You need to get it together now. That's his wake-up call. And that's the same thing. It's like sometimes it just takes, like this guy would have never gone to Christ if his daughter wasn't sick. But he's now he gets it. He's like, that's a wake-up call. Like, I'm not gonna risk the same thing. This is not a game anymore. Christ, I'm ready. Like, I'll bow down to you. Like, please come into my life. Come into my house. We talked about this last week, right? What it means to come into my house. Like, come, please. Like, I'm ready to accept. That's what he's saying. Christianity requires humility. That rhymes. I did that. I should have done rhymes. You cannot be worried about what this world. Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? We cannot be worried about what this world, our friends, family, whatever, they think of us. We can't be worried about this. Like, what would my parents think if I went to church on this day? Like, we can't be worried about this. What would my friends say if I prayed before I eat? We can't think about this, right? Or if, like, especially wherever we are in our life, right? There's certain events where we feel very awkward. You know what I mean? Like very awkward, like social gatherings and stuff. And we feel very awkward. We feel obligated. Like, but that's like a close friend. I knew him like 5-10 years ago. Like I see him home. We can't think about that kind of stuff. We're Christians. We like Christ died for us. You know what I mean? So like we can't be like, oh, but God, I love you, but just not that much. You know what I mean? We have principles. Like if people really love us, and like why not the other way around? Why do we have to be the one giving up our rights? Right? If people really want to meet up with us, especially most of us are grown like me, but most of us are grown and graduated and stuff like that, and in college, and we were seeing like old friends again and meeting up with them. Why not on our turf? Right? Why at their turf? Why does it have to be that way? You want to come and see me? Come to church. Right? Well, like come to the place where I feel comfortable. If you really want to come and see me, set the tone. Set the tone. So Jairus also symbolizes what the nation of Israel should have done. So again, he's Jew. He's like representing the Old Testament. This is what they should have done. When Christ came, they should have all bowed down. They should have said, right now we were talking about you, but now you're here. Take over. Take over. We're the one. Like no more. You're not in charge anymore. So again, my daughter has just died. Again, the girl's not actually dead yet. But she's really, really sick. So he's emphasizing the need for her to come immediately. And that's your filling of the land. Jairus was emphasizing the need for Jesus to come to his house immediately. Immediately. The point of the story that we should get is Jairus is desperate. That's the point that I'm trying to get across. We should also be desperate to see Christ. Like, he's our only option. Not one of the options, but the only option. I'll say this. A lot of parents come and talk to me. It's the same like story like over and over again. Like, oh please, like talk to my kid. He's a really good kid, but he has bad friends. And like his friends are like bullying him and stuff like that. But he's a good kid, I promise. And now I've done everything. And I'm like, what have you done? Like I took him to counseling. I took him to this. I took him to that. I tried to do this. Now I'm here at church. Like it's that. You know what I mean? Like these are not like multiple choice. You know what I mean? This is the choice. That's it. It's not even true or false. It's just true or true. Like just true. You know what I mean? Like Jesus. Like that's the first thing you do. Not like I tried this. Let me try this. I heard it was pretty good. I hear that you teach. No, that's not how it happens. Like I'm at a point where I need something new. Let me try to see what this whole religion thing is about. No, that's not the way we go about it. This is the only thing for us. There's no other option. We're not ready to take anything else. Christ is it, and I'm ready to marry him. Remember, we talked about that years ago. Somebody had a question, yeah.
Why is it saying she's dead?
That's it. The point is, he's trying to emphasize it. He's saying that. So, first of all, Matthew, you gotta understand why Matthew wrote it. Matthew is not really concerned about what happens next. Luke describes it in detail. What happens is, he comes and he says, like, she's dying. Mark says she's dead, but again, the point is not like what they're saying. The point is, he's emphasizing the need for him to come immediately. Later on the way to the house, this other man comes and says, okay, now she's dead. There's no point for Christ to come. This is in Luke, the Gospel of Luke. Remember, different accounts, different angles, different reasons. Remember that? All right. Are we together? Are we together? Okay. You can bring her back to life again if you just come and lay your hand on her. This man's faith is a model for all of us. Again, this is the type of confidence that we should have. By the way, when you go and pray at the church about something, whatever you're praying about, when you leave, don't think about it again. Make sense? Like, you pray about something, like you want something to happen, you pray, leave it to God. Don't you go home and think about that again. Don't be stressed about it again. You pray once, you leave it to God, God will handle it. And then the whole point is he's supposed to take away like your stress and stuff like that. If you just told God, God fix this for me, and you go and you pray, and you say like, deal with it, it will be done, and you do your prayer, right? Why are you going home stressed? Like he got it. Like, what are you gonna do after this point? Nothing, right? His will is gonna be done, not your will. Right? Like maybe you got like you're about to lose your job, you're freaking out. Like, God, please, whatever. God is gonna do what benefits you. Not what you think will benefit you. So, pray, do your prayer, like really get into it. You know what I mean? Like whatever you do, you know what I mean? Get into it. But then, leave it there. Don't you take it back. What's the point of telling God? What's the point? The whole point is he's supposed to take away your stress. That's the type of confidence that we need. Alright? So Jesus and his disciples got up and went with him. I love this verse. I love this verse. Notice what it says. It says, so Jesus and his disciples got up and went with him. Not like, oh, like, what happened to her? Like, what time is it? Like, wait a second. I think I have another appointment or whatever. Like, hey, like the disciples, you know, like, do we have time to go today? Like, is there that thing that's coming up? No. So they got up. He said, come. He said, okay. Mind you, his day, he had a very long day. His day started last week. That's when we started talking about it, right? That, like chapter 9, his day started last week, if you guys remember. You guys remember that? So, because of that, we remember that he was doing all this, like, all this healing and all this action, and he's like talking to all these people. He had a very long day. It's so easy for him to say, look guys, I'm not ready, I'm kind of tired, like maybe another day is better, maybe like we should kind of skip this around or whatever. It's very easy for him to do this. What does he do? So he gets up and goes. He just goes. Very simple. It's a simple thing. In our spiritual life, are you guys with me? Is everybody with me? In our services, there's 1,000 reasons why we may feel like the service that we're doing Like, but there's that one thing, like, no, but like, I promise, like, there's this thing, especially in DC, there's a billion things going on. That's the point. Just get up and go. Just get up and go. Don't give excuses. Don't give excuses. That's what Christ is teaching us, right? You know, in another part of the Bible, when like his disciples was coming to him, and he's like, I'm ready to follow you, but I just gotta bury my dad real quick and I'll be back. He's like, let the spiritual dead bury their own. This is kind of the response of how serious Christ is, right? This is pretty serious. Because his whole thing is, are you serious about me or not? Are you serious about following me or not? That's the question that we have got to ask ourselves. So if you're ready, so get up and go. No question. We're soldiers. But what does service actually mean? We'll talk about that another day. We, following the example of Christ, should never resist the opportunity to help others. We, following the example of Christ, should never resist the opportunity to help others, especially because most of the time, if you see the excuses that we give, 90% of the time, we know they're excuses. Like the whole I'm busy thing, I can't make it thing, we know we can plan around it. We know it, right? But we use it like it's so easy, especially like once you do it, the second time it's easier, the third time it's like a normal thing. Like before somebody even asks you. I'm gonna tell you guys a true story. This is a very, very true story. I'm not proud of it, but it happened. So I was in church all night long, and I was very, very tired. I'm ready to go home. This elderly person asked me, can you take me home? And I was like, you know, I've been there before. Sometimes they don't know where you live and stuff like that, you know. So I'm like, I just didn't want to do it. So I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going that way. And there was another guy who was listening to me like, they didn't even tell me where they were going. I was ready. Like, I just didn't want to deal with it. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not going that way. And that is the definition of like not being willing and ready to serve. We as servants, we don't give excuses. We're soldiers. But what does serving mean? And who are you serving? And how are you supposed to be serving? It's different. Serving your family, that is a form of serving itself. But if you're approaching it, not to please others, but to please Christ himself. If you're serving your family, you're serving them through Christ. Not on your own. There's a difference. When I'm saying this, I don't mean abandon your services at home. That's not what I'm saying. But that's a different topic. So now, he's ready. He's going, and he's going to the house. Get some clothes. A woman, and she's bleeding for 12 years. Imagine that for a second. Are you guys with me? For 12 years, this woman is sick. Really, really sick. Can you guys imagine having a cold for 12 days? Forget about bleeding for 12 years. Just a common cold, like for 12 days. Not even 12 years. Right? I cough pretty weird. I cough pretty weird. So, can you imagine that? For 12 years, she was bleeding. 12 years. 12 years. What made the situation worse? What made the situation worse was the fact that in the Old Testament, it's like if somebody's sick, like in this society, you feel for them, right? Like, oh man, my brother, my sister, oh no, like, you know, like you feel for them, right? Like, right? So you give them something, and like to show that you're concerned about them, right? You know that you're like right? You give them something to show. But in the Old Testament, if you had an issue of the blood, are you guys with me? If you had like bleeding problems and stuff like that, you were seen as unclean. Not only are you sick, but now, in terms of the society, you're shunned. Like, oh, that person's bleeding. So that is like it's a double hit. You see what I'm saying? It's a double hit because, like, number one, you're sick physically, like you feel horrible. It's just no energy. Imagine all the stuff that comes along with it. Not just one problem, it's like a bunch of things, like smells and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, and this is back in the day, you know? Like medication. So there's a whole bunch of issues that will come with it, number one. Number two, society looks at you like you're unclean. They don't want anything to do with you. You have no friends, you're sick, you have no power. 12 years, this woman was this way. She used all her money, all her resources to get healed, nothing happened. What do you think happened? She became desperate. Again, the point is, unless we're really, really desperate, we can never accept Christ. She's desperate. Ready. I'm ready to accept Christ right now. But what did she do? What did she do? She's like, I don't even need to talk to him. I don't need to do anything with him. Let me just touch the fringe of his robe, with the edge of it. And just touch that. That's all I need to do. The minute she touches it, 12 years of disease suddenly was gone. Where's that from? Where's that from? You guys are not listening to the gospel Muslim. Yeah, she knows. It's the YTC Muslim. 12 years of disease suddenly was cured. Right? That's what it said. Nobody gets it. We're weird. 12 years of disease suddenly was cured. Go watch it. The newest here know what is gone. Go watch it on YouTube. Alright. So again, the amount of faith is what we're talking about, and that's what we needed to have. When we approach Christ, not kind of, sort of, not maybe, whatever, but you are the only one, and I'm 100% sure you're going to heal me. 100%. Your will be done, and it's going to benefit me. I'm ready for this. That is the faith that we need to have. Now, touching the friend of the Lord. Friend of the Lord. Number one. Well, before we talk about that, let's talk about the fact that she did it in secret. There are different types of prayers that we do. Each one is very, very, very important. Like, here's the prayer of Kadasi, right? The prayer of Kadasi. That is done as a community. It's very important. Do it inside the church. Very, very important. There's like community prayer, like prayer for the country, prayer for a group, maybe like YTC may have a prayer, or like certain like specific church may have a prayer, but that's called community prayer. And then there's a personal prayer. You can't replace one with the other. You know what I mean? Like if you're having a prayer for the group for YTC, that is important that you come to the group. Right? If you're having a personal prayer, do a personal prayer. Personal prayers are very effective. They're not more effective, less important, effective. They're effective. Just like the other ones. But when we are praying independently, we've got to have the same like flow. Like, this is not a show or whatever. Nobody's looking, but God is listening. He knows what's happening. And that's what she did. She did it in secret, without telling anybody, without saying, look what I'm about to do. Check this out, check this out. No, stop. You know what I mean? That's not what happened. She did it in secret out of humility. Nobody, God knows what's happening. He knows my faith. She just touched it. And then suddenly it was true. Alright? Now, what does the fringe represent? It represents those who come after him. Mind you, she touches the fringe of his robe, right? The fringe of his robe is symbolizing all the teachers and all the disciples who came after him. If we listen to their teaching, we also will be saved. Does that make sense? It didn't stop with Christ. Just because we don't live at the same time as Christ did, does not mean we don't get to have the same blessings that they had. Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? If we listen to the teachings of the disciples, if we listen to the teachings of those who came after him, we are touching his robe, and if we have faith, we will have the same blessings that they had. This is what it says in the epistle of 1 John chapter 1, verse 1. We proclaim to you, who's saying this? Who's saying this? Epistle of John. Who do you think wrote it? Who do you think wrote it? Don't be afraid, everybody say it. John. So, John wrote this, right? Are you guys with me? Everybody with me? We proclaim to you the one who existed from the beginning, whom we've heard and seen. Whom we have what? What is he talking about here? John. Is everybody with me? What is he talking about here? I feel like I'm talking about something. So what he's talking about is, he's saying, the one that we're talking about, the one that we're teaching, that was about Christ, right? He's talking about Christ. The one that we're talking about is the same one that we have seen. They have seen him. They have touched him. And he keeps saying, we saw him with our own eyes and touched him with our own hands. He is the world of life. So they saw him, they touched him, they ate with him, and now they're telling us about him. Does that make sense? They saw him, and they're telling us about him. So if we listen to them, guess who we're seeing? Guess who we're listening to? Christ himself. We're touching the fringe of the robe. That's what it means. To hear the teachings of Christ. To hear the teachings of the church. The church is 2,000 years old. But she's teaching the same teaching that Christ was teaching 2,000 years ago. If we're listening to the teaching, we're listening to Christ himself. Does that make sense? Touching the fringe of the robe means listening to those who come after them. But listening to Christ himself. Because we're touching the fringe of the robe through our faith. That's what it means. Let's keep going. Is everybody with me? Is everybody with me? The second thing, those of you guys who have to go, but so many of you guys can go, we'll catch up. Those were the people I don't like anyway. Okay. Touching the fringe of the robe. You guys with me? Everybody, gather your thoughts. You guys with me? Touching the fringe of the robe also means intercession. Intercession. Right? That was very loud. Intercession. What that means is, think about it. If through faith this woman is able to be healed, just by touching the fringe of his robe, you don't think we'd be healed if we touch the Virgin Mary through our faith? We touch it, like spiritual communication is happening, right? In our spiritual hands, we're touching her when we're praying. Are we not? We're touching the angels, are we not? Do you not think that if, like, simple clothes, garments, can save somebody from 12 years of disease? Do you not think it will heal us if we touch the Virgin Mary through our faith? Through our faith, if we touch the angels, do you not think we will be healed? The saints, do you not think we will be healed? Questions of intercession is a silly question, to be honest. We see it every single day. And people say, show me in the Bible where it says that they intercede us. It's everywhere. We just have to be willing to be. We just have to be willing. Again, another theme that's reoccurring. Notice this woman leaves her home and goes to Christ. She's leaving her home and going where? To Christ. If we want to be healed, we have to leave our old life and follow Him. This is like a reoccurring theme. Your faith has made you well. It tells you. What is faith? What is faith? What is faith? What's the definition of faith? Believing something. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 1. No. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 1. Having the ability to believe in something that we cannot see or we have no evidence for. Is what Hebrews tells us. I'm paraphrasing. We should have faith in God and live our lives believing we will one day live with Him in paradise. I'm about to tell you something pretty crazy. I said it this morning. I'm going to keep it again. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The what crazy thing? I'm so ready. Y'all don't understand? I was so ready. All right. We will one day live with Him in paradise. Now that one? I don't know what you do. We will one day live with Him. Oh, I had the verse in there. Crazy thing. Crazy thing. You guys ready? You guys ready? At one time or another, all of you guys were atheists. I'm explaining what that means.
That's good.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
You can say to not say
No. Here's why. Atheists have no faith in God. They say God doesn't exist, right? Right? Are you guys listening? Whenever we sin, think about the worst sin you could commit and just tell me. No, I'm kidding. But just think about it. Think about the worst thing that you've done. David is like, this one sin I picked. Think about it. Think about the worst thing that you've done. Right? It's in your head. Funny faces. Come on, I can't believe I did that one. That action, whatever it was, do you think you would have done it if you were listening to a sermon?
No.
Or if a priest was next to you? Or you were singing Muslim? Would you have been able to go through that action, singing Muslim at the same time? No, right? Everybody's like, come on, you are crazy, man. But here's the thing. What do you think happens when we commit sin? We have to force that part of the brain that believes in God, we turn it off. We have to live for a second or whatever it takes. We have to live our life in a way as if God can exist in order to go through that sin. Whenever we commit sin, for that period, we live our life as if He can exist. Right? That's what sin is. When we come back to our senses and we're saying, God does exist, what do we start doing? We start going back to church, we start praying, we start fasting, we start reading the Bible. Why? Because we actually start believing in God again. The thing that we're not seeing. We start having faith again. Does that make sense? The point that I'm trying to make, yeah, it does. You're just shaking, yeah, it does.
all the those things you said can be applicable to say if your parents were here. So I don't believe my parents exist too.
What?
All these things that you're talking about, I wouldn't have done if my parents were there. So I don't believe my parents exist at that moment too.
So the point of God is He is in your heart, right? You take Him everywhere. So if He's in your heart right there, He is there. Your parents, at least they're not watching. You can say they're not watching. And you can get away with it. But God is watching you.
So saying for that moment you don't believe God exists and ignoring that.
The point that I'm trying to make, and not the argument that I'm trying to make, the point that I'm trying to make is whenever we commit sin, we have to turn off the part of the brain that says God is watching us. The difference is our parents are not watching us, and we could confirm if our parents are watching us or not. We could confirm it. Right? And we should have faith that God is watching us all the time. It should bother us before we commit sin, but it doesn't. Suddenly, when it comes to the territory of God, it stops bothering us and we stop thinking. We actually stop and check if our parents are watching us before we do whatever. Right? We want to make sure that our parents don't find out what we did. And we go through extraordinary things to make sure that our parents don't find out even before we commit. Like there's a whole bunch of steps that we take to make sure that they can't see and find out the things that we're about to do. With God, you don't even think about it.
So that doesn't mean I don't believe that God
It's not right.
exists.
It's not right.
We can talk about it.
You get this point?
Ignoring the fact that He's watching does not mean He exists.
Atheism essentially means living a life as if God doesn't exist. You're living your life as if God doesn't exist. Make sense?
It means believing that God exists and not living like.
So believing that God doesn't exist means they're living their life in a way that God doesn't exist. That's the point.
Those two are not the same.
I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to argue. Alright. God heals the daughter of the leader of the synagogue. The girl isn't dead, she's only asleep, he says. Mind you, at this point, if you guys read the Gospel of Luke, at this point, she is actually dead. At this point. Because what happens is, right when that lady of the 12-year bleeding, she stops, or she's healed. There's a guy that goes up to him and he tells him, okay, now she's dead. Like, it actually happened. So at this point, she is dead. At this point, she is dead. So now, this is a typical, like, homicide, okay? Like, and I'm not talking about right now, I'm talking about, like, 1975. What happened in, you guys know Osmani now? Not Osmani, but, like, Al-Sekha. You know what that is? Y'all about to hear something crazy. For those of y'all who don't know, for those of you guys who don't know, y'all want to hear something crazy. Get ready. So back in the day, what they used to do is, when there was a lecture, you wanted the lecture to be hidden, you know what I'm saying? You wanted it to be lying, you know, whatever. So you hire somebody to cry. Like, your job is to cry. And not just cry, your job is not just to cry, but to make others cry. You know, like, because you want to privilege, you know what I'm saying? So like, there's a typical, like, there's a melody that they kind of mastered the day before they would come and interview the people, like, who's the youngest here? And like, so-and-so went out and, like, let's say, I don't know, Hewitt or whatever, or Muscat or whatever, you know, so right, there's Hewitt here, I don't know. So, like, let's say, like, Muscat, right? So the next stage was, who raised Muscat? Who raised, you like, oh, Muscat? You know what I mean? And then people so the point that I'm trying to get, it was very, like, crazy. Imagine everybody yelling and screaming, right? This is kind of the environment that was taking place at this time. Like, oh, little girl here and stuff, and people are crying and yelling. Christ comes in the middle of all this chaos. He's like, she's not dead, she's asleep. In the middle of this chaos. He's like, oh, no, she's not dead, she's asleep. And we go from that to, you know, this guy's crazy. And he started laughing. They all like, ha ha. I have a weird laugh too. Huh? With Christ, when the faithful depart from this world, they will be rested. Here's the point that I'm trying to get across. Not the argument, but the point. The point that I'm trying to get across is, for Christians, if you're faithful, and you depart from this world, they will be rested. They will be rested as you fill in the blank. Here's the thing. For those who believe in Christ, when they depart from this world, it's as if they're going on a nap. They're napping. They're resting. Right? You know how we know this? Two things. Number one, not two things. I'll go myself. Here's how we know this. Like, if I forgot my shirt here, right? And then I left, and somebody said, whose shirt is that? What are you going to say? That's David's shirt, right? Are you going to be like, look, David's? Look at my shirt. No. Why? Because let's say David dies. I'm sorry. Get this really mad at her.
Why did you say Muscat?
He's right here. And he's dead. And half of us are dead. Half. So the other half somewhere else. So when his body comes, right? What do we say? Muscat, okay. The poor Muscat, like, there's somebody going online, like, what did I do? So Muscat is dead, right? And his body's coming into the church. What do we say when his body comes into the church? Muscat is here or his body's here? His body's here. We don't say, oh, look, Muscat. Let's take a selfie. No. We say, like, what do we say? Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? We say, look, his body is here. Does that make sense? Are you guys with me? We say his body is here. We don't say he is here. We say his body is here. Why? Because Muscat is? No, he's somewhere else. Oh, no, he's somewhere else. Right? Remember, the analogy of the cold. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, if you, like, are you guys with me? This body that we have in front of us right now that we have, it's just clothing. It's just something that's going to leave behind. We're going to leave it behind. That's why we shouldn't spend so much time trying to please this body. It's because we're leaving it behind. Make sense?
Yeah.
Our true identity, who we are, our core, is within us, within this body. We're leaving this behind. So we're resting. Because there's a day we're going to get back on. True death that you should mourn for, is the ability to be separated from the life. The life. Who's the life? Christ himself. The minute you're separated from Christ, that's when you die. There are many people in this world who are walking around, breathing and eating and drinking, who are dead. Many people who are dead. Why? Because they don't have life. Does that make sense? Let's keep going. Okay. The crowd laughed at me. I'm going to make this point real fast. I saw a debate the other day that scared me. As you guys know, I like debates, like spiritual debates. I watch them all the time. I don't know why. And this specific one was about it's believing in God and delusion. That was the topic of like a debate. It's believing in God and delusion, right? And people really like arguing, especially on the atheist side. They were saying the only way you can believe in God is if you're crazy. Like in your mind, you really like delusional. It's like actual delusional. That's the only possible explanation for believing in God. The world is a different world that we live in. Are you guys with me? I always talk about there's a war on Christianity. You have to wake up. You have to be like active. You have to be vigilant and understand what's happening. Since 9/11, there's been a serious war against religions in general, especially in this country. And there's an effort to shut us down and to make us ashamed and to make us be quiet, but we can't. And we have to be very vigilant, understand what we believe in. I used to tell you guys in school, there used to be like an African American teacher who used to say, I have nothing to do with God, and he would ask the kids just random questions like, what if God was really the devil was God? And just random questions. Like, just random questions. What if the Bible was written by the devil and God is actual, the bad, things like that. In an African American history class. And the point is, there's a war going on. A series, and there's a group of people who are trying to shut us down. We're still lacking at this. That's why we got to learn. Today, I ask my students, and I'll ask the same thing. If somebody asks you, why do you believe in God, can you tell them why? I don't need an answer right now, but can you tell them, can you really explain to somebody why you believe in God, why you're a Christian, why you're Orthodox? If somebody stopped you on the train, I'm telling you something that happened to me. I'm telling you, when I was in the car one day, and somebody, I was like, hey, I'm about to do theology, I'm about to learn theology. Laughed. I was like, yeah. I'm like, why are you laughing? and then he was like, I'm an atheist, I think that's so sick. And I was like, you got it in the wrong card. I don't know. So we talked, but because I wasn't angry, I wasn't mad, we saying very offensive things. But logically, and I know the mindset that he was coming from, I was able to talk to him. He got a 5-star. And he said it was a great conversation, and he learned something new. He's not a Christian, he's not about to be baptized. That's not what I'm trying to say. But at least defend, and I'm not here saying I'm holy, whatever, but at least defending your faith. At least having something to say back. When somebody's like, other than that's so offensive. I'm mad, stop it. Other than that, explain, wait a second, I believe in this because of this. This is why this is this way. The Bible is that. Right? So please learn. Learn. If nothing else, because one day you don't know when, you don't know the time, you have no time to say, I swear, there's a teacher, you talk to him, he'll tell you everything. 5, something. No, you have to learn. You have to learn. That makes sense? Questions? Questions? No question. I'm so worried. I am worried. How's the reflection going? Going good? You guys like it? Really?